Good morning. The date is Saturday, April 4th, 2026. We're coming to you with a special deep dive briefing, a comprehensive look at the pivotal events that have reshaped our world in just the last 12 hours. The world is at a critical juncture, and today we're going to connect the dots for you.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to break down 5 crises that, believe it or not, are all deeply interconnected. We'll start with the flashpoint in the Middle East, then look at the immediate shock that sent through the global economy, the startling paradox now facing the AI revolution, how our trade routes are being fundamentally rewired, and finally, the new strategic mindset that's emerging from all this chaos. All right, let's kick things off on the world stage, where the strategic landscape in the Middle East has just hit a whole new level of intensity. From our global briefing desk, we are tracking a situation that is literally evolving by the hour. After that military reprieve expired earlier this week, things have escalated, and they've escalated fast. So what's happened in just the last 12 hours? Well, we've seen a sustained air campaign by United States and Israeli forces. The initial targets were command centers and missile sites, but overnight, these strikes got bigger. They're now aimed at something very specific: degrading Iran's ability to produce its own long-range drones. And the response from Tehran? Well, the rhetoric is still locked on a long, drawn-out war of attrition. What that tells us is there's really no immediate path to de-escalation in sight.
And behind all this military strategy, there is a devastating human cost. Look at this number. The number of displaced people across Lebanon and the wider Levant region has now surged past 1.3 million. That is just a staggering humanitarian crisis unfolding right alongside the military operations. And aid agencies are warning that essential services are on the verge of complete collapse.
Okay, so let's shift gears now. We're moving from the front lines to the financial markets, because what happens there doesn't stay there. It's sending shockwaves through the entire global economy. And the reaction? It's been immediate and it's been visceral. What we're looking at is basically a domino effect, a cascade of consequences rippling right through energy, credit markets, and industry. Let's start with the most direct hit.
So where's the first domino to fall? Right in the world's energy supply. The threat of this conflict's getting even bigger is creating enormous volatility. And here's the immediate result of that. Brent crude oil has surged, and it's been consistently breaking the $115 per barrel mark. Now, this spike isn't happening in a vacuum. It's coming right after the latest warnings from the White House about Iranian energy infrastructure, creating what the IMF is now calling a historic energy shortage.
Now, this kind of uncertainty doesn't just hit the gas pumps. It's hitting credit markets, and it's hitting them hard. You see this number? 4.38%? That's the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield, and it's basically a global thermometer for anxiety. It's staying this high tells you just how nervous investors are about persistent inflation and the long-term cost of all this instability. And that anxiety isn't just a number on a screen, it's creating very real stress on Wall Street. Think about this. Some of the big private credit funds, the ones that basically finance this whole AI boom, they're now having to limit how much money people can take out. Why? Because everyone's trying to pull their cash at once. That's a huge liquidity red flag. And this, right here, brings us to our third and maybe most surprising critical area, the tech sector. Because we're seeing this high-stakes paradox play out, where the incredible, explosive growth of AI is slamming right into a physical wall. It's a classic case of an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. On one side, you've got this explosive, world-changing technology. And on the other, the simple physical limits of our global infrastructure. Let's really dig into this core conflict. So, here is the absolute core of the problem. We have an unprecedented, just insatiable demand for AI hardware, for chips from companies like NVIDIA. But that demand is running headfirst into a physical power ceiling. And the world's electric grid, it just wasn't built for this kind of demand. Not even close. And if you want to understand the sheer scale of this problem, just look at this number. Projections are showing the AI industry will need an extra 92 gigawatts of power by next year. To put that into perspective for you, that is a staggering amount of energy. We're talking more than what entire countries use. It's creating this massive, massive bottleneck for any future growth in the industry. So this energy crisis is forcing a really radical rethink. You've got the biggest tech companies on the planet, the hyperscalers that run the cloud, and they're now looking at directly investing in their own power sources. We're talking things like modular nuclear reactors, just to keep the lights on for their hardware. And you have to ask, what does that mean? It could mean even more power gets concentrated in the hands of the few giants who can actually afford to do that.
And these disruptions, they don't stop with data centers. They're extending into the very arteries of global commerce. Our fourth section looks at how supply chains are being fundamentally rewired under this unprecedented strain.
What the military conflict has done is create an absolute logistical nightmare at sea. First, you have the Strait of Hormuz, a critical choke point for global oil. It's practically paralyzed. This is forcing ships to take a huge detour all the way around the Cape of Good Hope, which can add up to 2 weeks to their trip. And the result? Well, it's pretty simple. There just aren't enough ships to go around anymore. It's a structural shortage, and it's driving up costs for everything.
So when you take all of these converging crises, military, economic, tech, logistics, and you put them all together, they're forcing a really profound shift in strategy. And that brings us to our final section, the rise of a whole new philosophy. I'm talking about the just-in-case future. And this isn't some fringe idea we're talking about. It is a massive pivot. Get this, a stunning 72% of professionals in the trade industry say they are actively changing their core strategies right now, specifically to deal with this new reality of constant disruption.
So, what does the shift actually look like in practice? Well, for decades, the entire global economy ran on this idea of just in time. The goal was maximum efficiency, keep your inventory as low as humanly possible. The new model, just in case, completely flips that on its head. It prioritizes resilience, building up regional stockpiles to withstand shocks. It's no longer just about efficiency. Now, it's about survival. You see, this new era, it demands a totally different kind of strength, both for companies and for countries. It's not about being the fastest or the leanest anymore. It's about being able to take a hit, to adapt on the fly, and to simply endure. And those, right there, are the core principles of this new just-in-case world.
And that concludes our deep dive. As we've seen, from the battlefields to the boardrooms, a whole new playbook is being written in real time. And it leaves all of us with a really critical question to think about. In a world that's just defined by one crisis cascading into another, is resilience the new superpower? Thank you for joining us.